Hello, welcome to this 5 tips video, and today I want to talk about fossilization. I've got a great question from Zoe Land, which is, do you have any experience with serious fossilization? Any tips? So just in case you're watching thinking fossilizer, what? Fossilization, what Zoe's talking about here is when you've learned a language in the past and it's kind of in your brain and become kind of like forgotten and, you know, kind of covered in lots of dust and everything else is piled up on top of it, kind of like a real life fossil. So this video is for Zoe, hello, and for everyone else out there who has ever experienced this. I definitely have in the past. So here are my 5 tips to deal with it. Number 1. Treat your fossilized language much like you would a real fossil. So don't try and yank it out of the ground. Instead, try and brush it off gently so it feels comfortable, and just gently, slowly, it will come back. Now, my point here is, much like when you start to learn a new language for the first time, we tend to get quite carried away and overexcited, and if we do this, this tends to be what leads to burnout. This is why there's so many people out there who say, oh yeah, I tried to learn a language, but I failed, or I gave up, right? All of this stuff doesn't need to happen, because if you approach it right from the get-go, then poof, you'll be fine. So take it easy, step by step. Don't try and force anything, just try and remember first. And that leads into tip number 2, which is exposure. So really try and take in as much as you can, and then begin to start to put out as much as you can as well. So start by listening and reading as much as you can in the language, and then begin to write and speak as much as you can as well. So it's really just about taking it completely into your life and not just thinking, oh yeah, I might want to bring it back, I don't know. If you do it sort of half-assed, the language will come back reflecting that, right? So, you know, you want it to be a solid comeback, then really go for it. We're looking for a Spice Girls comeback, not a Bros style comeback. Tip number 3, give yourself permission to relearn stuff. This does not mean that you failed. Don't be afraid of going back to the very beginning of that first book that you ever learned with. It's fine, it's totally fine, because what you'll probably find is that that's a great confidence booster. You're starting at the beginning, that's the stuff that's likely to be remembered somewhere in there. So that's going to help to sweep that dust off a little bit quicker, and your confidence will increase as you go through those early chapters at lightning speed compared to what you did the first time round. But the opposite to this is when you feel like, oh yeah, I know that, I'm just gonna skip to like chapter 15 already. And so you're really struggling, you're kind of swimming against the tide a little bit, because you just need to build some reinforcement. No problem, don't worry, give yourself permission to go back and relearn. No problem at all. Tip number 4 is figure out, why was it that you stopped? Was there like a big life thing that happened that meant you had to just shelve it for the time being? Was it that you got completely frustrated and fed up with learning that language and you couldn't take it any longer? Whatever it was, things are going to be a little bit different as you reapproach the language. So take that into consideration and be kind to yourself as you're going through that process. For example, if you found yourself just incredibly frustrated and bored and overwhelmed with the whole thing, and that's why it got left to the side, then maybe what you need is to find something that you love to reconnect you to that language, to kind of give you more of a purpose and more of an understanding of the language. This could come in so many forms. It could be music, it could be food, it could be travel. Maybe it means booking a plane ticket to that place to really give you a deadline of motivation. But if it was more out of your control for why you stopped learning that language and why it's ended up becoming a bit fossilized in the brain, then don't worry. You should be enjoying getting back to that language. You know, in theory, if you enjoyed it before and had to stop for sort of outside reason, then welcome it back in. Say, hey, come on back into my life, language, I missed you. Tip number 5, set some goals. So when you figured out why it was that you stopped, you figured out why it is that you want to start learning again, and you're kind of ready to go forward with that, and you don't want to sort of quote unquote mess it up again. Spoiler alert, you didn't mess it up before, it just happened, whatever, moving on. Then set yourself some goals. And these goals, maybe the first time you started learning, those goals that you set were a little bit too rigid, a bit too expectant of you, what everyone else was doing, what the course book was telling you to do. So maybe it's a case of needing to create your own syllabus, to be your own boss as you're learning this language solo. So if you've experienced fossilization of your own with a language in the past, how did you deal with this? Let me know in the comments below, and if you're going through this right now, I hope this has been helpful for you to get back on that horse and really dig back in. Dig back in? I did not mean to make a little archaeological fossil joke there, I'm sorry. Thank you again to Zoe Land for this question. This was a great question. I really enjoyed digging into the, oh, I've got to stop saying digging into this. Anyway, you get the point. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you to you for watching, and remember to subscribe for regular language learning videos. I will see you very soon. Thank you. Bye.